Hi, my name's Trina Wilcox. This is the Writers Room for Run Radio, and my guest today, Ambika Devi. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Trina. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, so one of the things that I liked in your bio is that you have hot tips for writers, HOT, all caps. So I think this will be great for our audience that is, experiencing maybe writing for the first time, publishing, self-publishing for the first time, and for those that, feel a little stale. I feel like you might be able to speak to all of that.
Yes, I'm happy to share anything that may appear as a secret.
Well,
It
I
will no
also,
longer be. Let's get into it.
yeah, let's get into it. I want to know just about your writing process, how long you've been writing, what
I'm
sparks you to
completely,
write.
oh, okay. Yeah. What sparks me? Well, I've been doing it since I could hold a crayon. So it just is. I
Okay.
really can't say I'm driven. Well, I'm driven, I guess, as a tiny little child and holding a crayon with paper, I began to tell stories. And then as I started, I had an older brother who's 13 years older. So he had reading material much different than mine. So I would sneak in his room and look at things that were kind of discarded, like Mad Magazine. And I started making graphic novels in the borders of my notebook paper in third grade. And my teacher was fine with it. My second grade teacher didn't like it, but by the time I got to third grade, and she was really kind of weaning us off of books that had any pictures, even just a few.
Hmm.
But she was cool with me describing things sometimes in the borders with imagery. It started way, way back then. Now, oh, well, it's definitely a way to open up my own emotions and dump my heart out. And all artists, you're probably familiar with the artist's way, and your audience probably is. Uh, it's a helpful thing to journal. And I have tons and tons of journals. I've saved a lot. I have dream journals, idea journals, story journals, speaking journals, all kinds of them. So it's just what I'm into. And I live alone and I don't have pets and I don't have children. So I have lots of time to just pour into my creativity.
So when we journal, I know that a lot of us use the keyboard a lot. There is something cool about the keyboard. I don't hate it at all, but there's still some magic to just good old fashioned pen, pencil, and paper. So do you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like you have a different way of letting stuff flow out of you when you do that
Mhm.
versus just sitting down at a keyboard?
Well, one of my hot tips is don't let anything slide by.
Okay.
Have a method to catch it. I don't care which method. I've walked around and carried a backpack with a journal and then started carrying a pad because I could have a gazillion books in my backpack also. I love colored pens. I love to draw, obviously. I mean, it started very early. It morphed into colored pens. And even if uh, I've done a lot of school and study, and if in a lecture of some sort, I'll have many colored pens and change colors sometimes just for emphasis in taking notes. So just going through a page has many colors. It gets very rainbow. It's just my process. I'm unconventional. I don't get up every morning and write. If I have a dream, I do because I want to
Okay.
catch it in my dream journal. But sometimes I use an app on my phone to take dictation. So, I use Otter AI. Try it. You can use it for free. It's amazing. And I've written a ton of stuff because now we're in front of screens all the time. At least I am. Well, not as much as I could be. So I like to close my eyes. Maybe I'll go out on the lanai. That's a covered patio, if you're not familiar with the term, and lie down on one of the loungers and close my eyes and just talk, tell a story. And my phone takes dictation. Uh, when I'm driving, I get ideas. Sometimes they happen in the shower. A lot of us get ideas, in the water. I have a pool, so I live in the subtropics, and so I spend a lot of time in the water and take something with me to catch ideas. Sometimes I'm floating on my back, and all of a sudden I have an idea, and I run over to swim over to my phone and get it down. So that's key. Don't let anything pass by. I know we all have. I still do, but I try to catch as much. And then I have a file system that makes sense to me, where I can save all my scraps. And I also use Evernote, which is a kind of a nice word processor that goes across platforms. And that's totally worth investing a little into if you're a writer, because you might throw something down in the morning, end up somewhere where you have to talk about it later, and you've got it, you can see it on another screen. Those are the writing tips. But
Mhm.
then the other thing is get up and move around.
Yes.
Put a song on and dance. Or when I got a mini trampoline and put it 5 steps away from my desk, from where I'm
Mhm.
sitting right now, it changed my whole life.
Those things are
You know?
great. They get the blood flowing.
Yeah. I mean, don't only have a glass of water. So you get up to get water. And when you do go dance around a bit, put a song on or just bounce or do some yoga, have a mat out somewhere. These are all things
Well,
I do.
you've got a lot of experience, years of experience with meditation. So
Mhm.
how did that come into your life, and why do you find it important?
Oh, meditation is for clearing the mind. A lot of people mistaken it for focusing on something. It's about letting go and disappearing from what we think reality and the world of opposites of I like it and I don't like it. Something's good, something's bad, disappears. It clears the mind out. So then great ideas can come in. They come in when you're coming out of it. I was introduced to it when I was 6 years old. I went to a Quaker school and we had to sit for an hour on Wednesday mornings with first through sixth grade. So all those kids sat quietly for an hour.
Wow.
It was something we craved. It was a
Really?
chill out midweek. It
Yeah.
was a dark, cool, stone, old building with these red velvety kind of cushions on what didn't look really comfortable, but they actually were benches. And there was something about being in a darker, cooler space that had a cozy feel, even though it was pretty grand in
Mhm.
size, and just being. Now, if you give a little child something and you act like you enjoy it, they're going to too. So that's how it was introduced to all of us.
How has meditation served you best, and how has it changed for you over the years?
I mean, I've taken teacher trainings, yoga teacher trainings through 5 schools. 2 of them are ashram lineages. I still study with Shivananda Ashram, which was the 5th of those 5. I got my first yoga teacher certification in 1978. I received my teacher training certificate from Shivananda in 2000 and it's skipping my mind. I got my master's degree in yoga in 2012, 2010, I believe, from Shivananda. And I've been studying, they've gone on Zoom quickly. And I've been studying with them all along. And, I loved traveling there. It's a way to donate to them and keep that little organization in the Bahamas going. But with the last 2 years, taking class on Zoom has been a luxury. And
Hmm.
it's very inspiring. I get a lot of ideas of what to write about. I
Mhm.
just posted a blog at my site, which is myname.com, ambikadevi.com. I'm sure you'll give the link to your
Yes.
listeners. So it's about cross comparing affirmations, mantras, and prayers. And really, to me, they're all the same, but there are ways to supercharge them. And in taking this class I'm taking right now, it's so exciting because it circled me back to one of my favorite meditation teachers. We called him Bante. That's just a kind of a term of endearment. I met him when he was 103 years old and wrote about it in my second book, Unfolding Happiness,
Wow.
and wrote about this phrase that now I'm learning came from Emile Coué. Many people use it. Emile Coué was a very well-known French psychologist in the late 1800s. And he developed this phrase, day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Maybe you've heard a version of it. And Bante used every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. And he would actually get us all chanting and singing it kind of in whatever tune came to our heads and dancing around the room and laughing. And it was just kind of an energetic, fun party cleanse out, you know? After sitting silently, he also liked to beam this kind of liquidy, spacey looking green light with floodlights in the meditation space. He was known as the monk of green. Like I said, I tell more of his story in Unfolding Happiness. And this phrase keeps coming back. I was at Mind Valley in 2018 in Estonia for a month, and Vishen, the leader of Mind Valley, was using a version. His was every day in every way. I'm getting better and better and better. And I thought, why'd you add the extra better? I never heard three betters, but okay. You know, he was really into it. He's also very into Silva Mind technique, which I took a certification course on while I was there with him. And then now I'm taking this class developed by Swami Swarupananda, who is the Acharya of the Bahamas campus. And it's the only course he ever created that isn't from the Vedas or the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita or Patanjali's sutras. It's kind of like outside the box, but he feels it's such perfect yogic philosophy to express in English. And so I just wrote this article. It's also available in audio if you want to listen to it.
So how did you decide was it through meditation or just your heart to make your writing part of motivating other people to write and get their book out and just encourage your audience in general?
When I first kind of got the gumption to, okay, I had been writing articles for newspapers, periodicals, monthly, magazines, things like that. And I had 7 pen names that I wrote under. Yes. Everything from lowrider events to quinceañera and dry cleaner shops and festivals and reggaeton artists. And it was for a Spanglish newspaper at one time. And I was writing astrology and also kind of a ask me anything column, you know, mostly about relationships. And so then I was really into the TV show Sex and the City, and Carrie, one of the characters, is a writer writing columns about, you know, being her age in New York City, and turned it into a book. And I thought, wait a minute, why couldn't I turn some of my stuff into a book? So, and then a client of mine, an astrology client of mine, said, you should write a book. She was a fan of my stuff, and she encouraged me. I dedicated my first book to her, Michelle. And the first book is Lilith. It's a novel. So, okay, I start working on it for 3 years. And I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I heard about this guy who's a famous chef, had a cafe, a bookstore, a restaurant, and he had a publishing company, all in this really cool building in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was living a little north of there in Scottsdale. And they got together once, I guess on a regular basis. I can't remember if it was weekly or biweekly, but, and they mentored young writers. You know, when I say young, I don't mean young in age, I mean green in publishing. Yeah. And I thought I finally got the you know, to go and show up. And I called to make a reservation, and they said, oh, we're so sorry, we ended that. Yeah, so that was like, you know, right. And but it was the publisher who answered the phone, the chef, the famous one. He was in town, and he said, why don't you come down? Let's make an appointment. I want to meet you. I don't know. I must have said something right. Who knows? I got all nervous, but it just so happened that he was publishing a dear, dear friend of my father for years. And so my family said, well, go, you know, he publishes this guy. Why not? And so I did. And he became my writing coach for 10 years. And that's how long, 13 years for that first book. Interestingly enough, the title, which turned out to be Lilith, was 13, the number of the goddess, when I first started writing. I mean, those are the original files. And so we made a relationship. He published that book. I had a 3-book deal. Things went a little weird, as they can with publishers. So be careful, which is why I encourage people to self-publish in the beginning. And that's my path. Might not be yours. That's fine. That was what is called a hybrid. People aren't really using that term anymore, but that's really what's happening. You pay to be published, but I was paying to be coached. So it's kind of worked into the deal, you know?
Right.
And then when I started working on the second book, Unfolding Happiness, he said, you know what, just take it. You go do it. You should be a publisher. So I stayed up for 3 nights and figured out how to be a publisher and did all the paperwork. And I can explain it. It's really not rocket science, and learned about copywriting and all that stuff, and created a second version ultimately of Lilith. So it's actually in its 2nd edition because I took on the publishing rights.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a private kind of conversation I need to have with each and every person writing to help you figure out what's the best route for you, because I've taken several and now I'm a publisher. I have my own label.
Okay. Yeah, that might be another, if you want to come back and speak on that, because I think it can get confusing what's best, and not necessarily one is always better for the other. And sometimes it may just be book by book what you might choose to do. Like I learned with children's books, you've got an illustrator involved, then you've got the book involved. If you're paying someone if they're taking a cut for publishing, you ain't going to be left with a lot. So,
well, also when it comes to the visuals, and I would love to come back and talk about this because I have a degree in fine arts. I do my covers, you know,
yes.
I now this one, Cupid is a Bastard, my 6th book is, and it's about love of all kinds. That's a collage. I have been a collage artist forever, but I do have an art department that works for me. And I have also a web department that works for me. Who, you know, there comes a point where you have to start paying people to do things. You have to stop trying to do everything because you'll make yourself nuts.
Right.
And you want to put your focus on your passion. You don't want to become unhappy, you know, that can stagnate you. We were talking earlier, I can't remember if it was before we hit the record button, but we were talking about motivation, or, you know, I do it in the moment. Oh, it was, because I was talking about capture it. But the other thing is play with other art forms, and that's the artist's way. Now, I went to art school, so of course I got into the artist's way when it came out, and I was a visual artist who was checking out the, you know, oh, okay, journaling, but I've always done it. But, you know, it's kind of fun to take the course and learn a way to present it, because some people really crave and need structure, you know, I am not that type. I am that free, you know, flowing kind of Chiquita that, but some people do need that, you know, get up at 6 a.m. or 4 a.m. and, you know, do this and write at this point. And even if you sit and stare at your paper, I don't have a problem of stuff wanting to come out of my heart, down my arm, and through a pen or a keyboard.
Well, before we go, I do want to talk about your next book. Tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it.
My next book, or the
newest
one
you're
book?
The newest.
Oh, the newest book.
Yes.
Cupid is a Bastard. It's but maybe not such a bastard, because the thing is, I've had a lot of lovers and family and friends who have died. And this was my pandemic project. Remember I said earlier, I don't have pets. I live alone. I don't have children. And I had originally moved here to be with my mother until the end of her life. And I am actually grateful. She died in 2019 before all the crazy hit. And I feel so much for the people who had to go through that with elderly, or the elderly who had to go through that, because she lived in an assisted living for 5 years. So I really got to know them. I would go do slideshows and presentations and sing and, you know, do all sorts of stuff because I hung out there with her, and creativity was a big part of that community, and I loved it. So when she died, and as she was coming closer and closer, I began to write a lot. I think a lot of us do that when we're dealing with death, or loss. That I see a lot of writers, when they finally hit a level, show up in my writing group that I attend. That's another thing, is let somebody be your cheerleader. I love to write to prompts. This book, Cupid is a Bastard, was inspired by prompts, meaning taking little bits of another writer and thinking about it, and then being inspired by it and writing. And my editor, also, part of the team, hosts and conducts these on a regular basis. Some co-ed, one group is a very heavy duty group that's been together for over 2 years. And now is, we have a lot of trust. It's all women. So finding a little group like that, I think for some, I know you want to just be on your own. So this book has love stories. It has recollections of dreams in the form of flash fiction. There's poetry. I tell some background story. I definitely give my readers an idea of, okay, what's going on here? Even why did you name a book Cupid is a Bastard? And that I explain in the trailer on my YouTube and also on Instagram and TikTok, of course. And then the poems that I wrote while my mom was dying. And also she would have been 100 this year. So every year on her birthday, I write a poem, and I stash those in my poetry files. And some old poems that were stashed there ended up here. And then the whole thing was named and kind of really sprung at one of our writing state treats, which are long weekends, quarterly, where we had a prompt, and it inspired me to tell a story of a dating app experience just prior to the lockdown. And I entitled this little one-page essay, Cupid is a Bastard. We always have a guest speaker during these long weekends. And just so happened we had one from the main publishing industry, the big publishing industry. And it was my turn to read. So we write to prompts, and then we come back and read, and we do it again, and we do it again. And so I read my little essay, and I usually title stuff. That's how I can find it in my files later. It may change, but that's how it starts. And she, as soon as I named this one, Cupid is a Bastard, she screamed out, that's a great name. And I thought, okay, as soon as I'm done reading, I'm buying that URL.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you want to share real quickly before we close?
Please connect with me. I actually hang out with you once a month. So if you join my mailing list at ambikadevi.com, I will invite you every month to get together for a movie or a guest speaker or both, different presenters, and it's free, just to say thank you for opening my once a month email. There's also free stuff there that you can learn from about the different topics that I'm involved in, and my blog. So, you're all bookworms like me. You might like that.
I'm going to go check it out. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Trina. I really appreciate being here. And thank you for listening to the end, everyone.
Thank you.